What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the film room. It's Sunday. I miss football. I know you guys miss football. The draft season is almost coming to a head with the draft here just around the corner. You're going to have Greg, Aaron, and myself in Vegas for the draft. But I wanted to take a look at a player that I'm getting a lot of questions on, and that's Dane Jackson, the cornerback from the Bills, and how he filled in for Tre'Davious White and played in the Bills defense. So wanted to pull some clips from some of the games in the second half of the season. But we're going to start out with some stats. We're going to take a look at some PFF stats, of course, kind of to round out this evaluation. And I thought he did all right. I think, for what they ask of him, he did pretty good. I think he's lucky, and most of the defensive backs can say this. They're lucky because they have two really good safeties. So, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde really do help these corners a lot. There's a reason why they are mentioned as one of the best tandems at safety in the league. So we're going to take a look at some of Dane Jackson's stats here, courtesy of Pro Football Focus. So he ended the season with 620 total snaps, 40 tackles, which is not bad, just below Gregory Rousseau and Levi Wallace. So 8th overall in solo tackles. Missed 4 on the season, which was an 8% miss rate, according to Pro Football Focus, and he had 9 stops. It's really one of his strengths, right? His ability to come up versus the run and make those tackles at or near the line of scrimmage. And also in those short passes, the Bills are totally okay with, giving up those short, quick game passes underneath. And he's the type of guy that will give up that 5 to 7 yard reception, come up, make the tackle, force the next down, and, really extend the drive. So it's something that's a strength of his, and you're going to see a bunch of those clips today. He was targeted 41 times. Right here, you can see this column right here. 41 times, allowed only 24 receptions, which is a 58.5% reception percentage rate for 298 yards. And if you kind of look, Tre'Davious White is right below Harrison Phillips right there. His reception percentage was 53.4. So it's not too far off, just, comparatively speaking. Levi Wallace allowed 60.4% of his passes. Again, it's a little murky when we're talking these type of stats because the Bills play so much zone coverage. And again, they will allow these teams to throw underneath and have their 4 deep corners kind of defending deep and taking away those deep passes. So as I move along in this breakdown, if you guys have any questions, be sure to shoot them in there. Chris just added that we don't need cornerback superstars if you have a kick-ass D-line. Bean did say that the other day. He is obviously a guy that believes in pass rush versus pass coverage, but it's a good balance if you think about it, because Bean may believe that the defensive line and their ability to create pressure is the foundation to a good pass defense, to a good defense overall. Well, Sean McDermott kind of balances that out because he believes in coverage, and his entire scheme with Leslie Frazier is really all about coverage, disguising that coverage, changing that picture from pre-snap to post-snap, and really getting that quarterback to hold on to the ball, and again, forcing those turnovers and whatnot. So it's kind of a good balance. You have a GM that believes in the pass rush. You have a defensive coach and a defensive staff that believes in pass coverage. Peter Wilson says he likes Jackson's skill set more than Levi's. Why is that, Peter? I mean, I think that Levi is very disciplined. He's comfortable in off coverage, whether it's man or zone. And I think that he can play off man coverage a little tighter than Dane Jackson. But I will say that one of the areas that I just talked about with Dane, his strength is tackling. Levi's tackling has improved over the years, but it really hasn't been his strong suit. But I do think Dane still has a ways to go when it comes to coverage. And Levi is just so disciplined compared to Dane Jackson. But I think if we look at this season and how Dane had to kind of fill in and Levi had to fill in for Trey, and how the defense had to change a little bit and rely on those safeties deep a little more often, I think when you project Dane into Levi's role, I think that is where I don't think there'd be much of a drop-off. So I do think that you do have a good point there. Jason says Dane Jackson, the forgot about man. For sure, man. He is a better tackler, as I just said. You're right. Long speed, I don't know. I think it's neck and neck with long speed. I know Levi didn't test all that well, but you're going to see some of these clips. Levi can judge the route better to stay in phase, and he may not have that long speed, whereas Dane is a little more aggressive, and it puts him out of phase, and then he doesn't have that closing or recovery speed. So Peter Wilson, good points there. My name is Jeff says corners in the Bills defense aren't as important as other. I mean, again, yeah. According to Bean and the way he's drafted and the type of guys that the Bills can train up and get to play in this scheme remarkably well, I mean, I can't really argue that. But it's come to a point now, guys, where we're starting to see some of their typical archetypes, their typical players that they like to put in their scheme, especially on defense. They're starting to I'm starting to question whether they are going to tweak it a little bit because that big splash move of Von Miller, that's not a typical move for this regime. Typically, they like those big, long, defenders, whether they're guys that could just, use their length and stop the run, use their length, process, run the pass, disengage, and go get the quarterback. They don't typically go for those bendier guys. And if you look at some of the visits that they're bringing in, they're not necessarily those big, long defensive ends. They're kind of, there's some of those guys sprinkled in there that are a little more bendier. So, hey, maybe it's the year that they actually kind of tweak their scheme a little more and tweak the personnel and type of guys that they go for. Some more comments on here. Yep, both suboptimal speed-wise for sure. Absolutely. Steve Jernigan says he's not sold on Dane Jackson. I feel like he hasn't been really tested yet. We will see with the schedule we have. I say with the schedule we have, I think it actually plays to his strengths because there are some more run-heavy teams, and that's his strength, his tackling. But I will say, and you're going to see it in some of these clips, he hasn't been tested. And when he was tested, he had those guys on the back end. He had Poyer and Hyde. So I do agree with you in some regard there. Peter, again, chiming in, we need to leverage that scheme versatility to at least get better traits in there. Yeah, I think adding some athleticism, we've been arguing that and debating that for years in the draft. And again, they hadn't really gone in that direction. D. Raleigh says, I believe in Dane to be our cornerback 2 and compete to be a cornerback 1 while Trey is out, but I do think we need either a vet and a good rook to be our cornerback 1 till Trey is back. Yeah, I agree. I think with the cap situation right now, they have names. They have a priority list of vets that they want to bring in, and I'm sure there's some offers out there. You hear about Von Miller recruiting Joe Hayden, but I'm sure they have a list going on, and eventually as the summer progresses after the draft, once they settle in and how many quarterbacks, I mean, I'm assuming they're going to draft at least 2 or somehow, whether it's through the draft or undrafted free agency, bring in 2 cornerbacks and maybe even more, let them hash it out. So I do think that they're at least going to be bringing at least one in via the draft. And then, yes, a veteran to come compete. Jason says, although I feel like with Trey, they were able to do a lot of different things with coverage in the defense so they can survive with average corners, but thrive with guys. Yeah. Well, the thing with Trey is he's so shut down where, if you want him to shadow another wide receiver or the top receiver of the other team, he could shadow him anywhere. Guys like Levi, guys like Dane, if that number 1 receiver goes in the slot and you're asking him to shadow him and you're giving that alpha wide receiver a 2-way go from the slot, not allowing him to get pressed or bumped at the line of scrimmage because he's off the line of scrimmage, that's a tall order for guys like Dane Jackson and Levi Wallace who are limited athletically. So, yes, there are some things that Trey can do to help your defense out. There were times where they'd lock Trey on the number 1 wide receiver and then zone off everyone else. Like, you can do that with a guy like Trey. They definitely missed him. And going back and watching some of these, Dane Jackson clips, and then going back and watching some of, these guys in the draft and how Trey was coming out of the draft and some of the clips from the first half of last year, the Bills obviously missed Trey White, and I'm sure they're going to be excited to get him back this year. My name is Jeff says, do you think Hayden will be a good fit? Yeah, I do. I mean, he's good in off coverage. He's got really high football IQ. He's seen it all. He's played in all types of coverages. He can trap with the best of them. Yes, he's absolutely a good fit. But again, I think at his age and where he is in his career, he's sort of athletically limited, just like the other guys that we're kind of mentioning there. So back to some of these stats. As I said, we're going to start from the Bucs game on. So you can see, he was targeted a good amount, and he only allowed 58.5 of those percent of those receptions for 298 yards. Big one was 61 yards, 5 pass breakups, no interceptions. Last year, he had, I think, a similar number with 5 pass breakups, but he had that 1 interception against the Jets. And so you can see he was not bad when targeted. He was at 81.1 NFL QB rating by opposing cornerbacks for penalties there. But again, you're going to see some of the things that stand out on film, whether it's the recovery or closing speed deep, whether it's him up near the line of scrimmage and being aggressive with his hands and, kind of getting beat over the top a little bit. But let's get into some of this film here. First game was the Tampa Bay game, and it was a game he had a lot of plays on the ball here. So let's start off with this one. And this is really his bread and butter, that spacing, his ability to space in zone coverage. You see him to the bottom of the screen right here. You're going to see him space these routes out. I'm sorry, he's actually right here. I highlighted Micah Hyde. So Jackson's right here near the line of scrimmage, showing like it's man coverage, but you can see the Bucks send out 3 eligibles, right? 1, 2, 3 out of the backfield. So they show press man, but it ends up becoming zone coverage. Looks like a cover 2, Tampa 2 shell. So you see him near the line of scrimmage, and he immediately pivots right there, and he's getting width this way so that he could keep, obviously, the running back was going to the flats in his peripheral, the quarterback and his drop and where he's looking to in his peripheral as he gets depth to the sideline, but also gains depth vertically to space this high-low concept. So you saw that 3 wide receiver look or 3 eligible look become, spaced out rather well, and it's up to the corners and the defensive backs to space this out. He works and spaces this really well. I mean, he basically has 5 yards in between both of these routes. Tom Brady ends up taking it and getting a first down on this play, but good spacing. Again, bread and butter for Dane Jackson to the bottom of the screen, spacing routes vertically and horizontally, working high to low, little smash concept between those 2 receivers, really just a spot. So you got a snag right here from the number 1. You have a deep corner from the number 2, and then just a diagonal or flat route, a little snag spot concept. But, they're really trying to work Dane Jackson here. They want him to hang low so that I believe this is Mike Evans can have that free release to the boundary, but it's shut down really well. I mean, you can't argue that this guy is he never backs down, right? He's got that mentality that the Bills love, and I believe this was actually a penalty, but this 3rd and 5 situation, top of the screen, you having just Gronk on a go route up the sideline here, but Dane Jackson stays right in his hip the entire way down the field. Very patient at the line of scrimmage. Look, you see him motor out with those 6-inch steps, looking right down the midline of Gronk. Man coverage, carries him. You see Gronk look back, and look at how Dane Jackson, as soon as Gronk's head snaps around, Jackson gets chest to chest with him. That's what you're taught. Get chest to chest, and then look back for the ball. And that's exactly what he does right there. And he's able to make a play on the ball, stays right in front of him, really just cuts him off, and he's all by himself. You can see Poyer has no chance of getting deep there. Really good technique, really good physicality against Gronk. They throw the flag here, which is super weak, but to me, this is fantastic coverage. You're not going to ding him in the meeting rooms, the DB room, for a play like this on Gronk. This was just phenomenal coverage and a terrible call by the refs. I mean, what do you expect him to do in that situation? He's outsized. Gronk's a bigger, more physical guy, and then you see him just make a play at the catch point. That's exactly what you want from your corner when he's outmatched. Let's be honest here. He's outmatched, and he just technically does a great job and it is right in the hip pocket of Gronk and forces the incompletion. Here's his ability to fill versus the run. So you're going to see him off the edge here, come off the edge as Godwin comes inside number 14, the block Poyer. So he's coming to block Poyer. That means you got to have a replacement right here off the edge. Gap integrity, right? So you see Dane come down and wrap up. He just is so good at wrapping up the ball carrier. He doesn't go for big hits. More times than not, he's going low. He's wrapping on those legs and minimizing. I mean, that's Fournette, who had a full head of steam, and he's able to wrap him up and minimize that gain. Here's another one, filling versus the run. Top of the screen right here, off coverage. This time against Jones, I believe. So Gronk and Godwin filling and blocking those guys up there. You see Dane Jackson find his gap and then stick Jones right at the line of scrimmage. Again, one of his strengths, and one of the reasons why I think he'll be all right for the most part this next year with the schedule and some of the teams that they're going to face. Again, coming off the left-hand side, you see him fill in his gap. Boom, wrap up. Good job there. Good technique. Doesn't let Jones get outside of him. And he's able to minimize that gain. You know, it's blocked up really well. This is what offenses want. They want to get their running backs on a defensive back. They want to make corners tackle. And Dane Jackson is one of the better tackling corners on the Bills roster. So here he is to the top of the screen. And the Bills drop out into zone. And Tom Brady takes the underneath stuff. So he fires it out to this guy right here. So you're going to see Dane have to come from depth to make that tackle. And again, he's good at that. Now, could he get there faster if he was, a little faster? Absolutely. The amount of time it takes him to gather his footwork, read and react, and then get downhill and go at this wide receiver, he could give up a few yards. That's 4 or 5 yards right there. But that pass was behind the line of scrimmage, and you see him come up, square him up, use the boundary. He knows he's got Taryn Johnson closing in this way. He doesn't give him the boundary. He's able to, cut him down right there and minimize that gain, set up third down and long there. So this is what the Bills want. If you're going to throw it underneath, you see him initially drop, get depth to kind of squeeze Mike Evans, who's a slot receiver, and then just get downhill and make the tackle. That's what the Bills want from their corners. Yeah, they were pretty bad in this game, and the Bills made a valiant comeback in this game. Unfortunately, it fell on the defensive side of the ball. They weren't able to hold them in overtime there, but here's a play with Dane in off-man coverage right here. I really like his break here, and it's something that showed up a couple times this year where teams tried attacking him in the red zone, and he actually made plays on the ball. That's a really nice play right there from Dane Jackson. I wish he would have intercepted it. I mean, that would have been one of his picks for the year. He should have intercepted it. But you see them, they're trying to out-leverage him right here. So you're going to see break come in motion, and he's pressing off the line of scrimmage this way so that Dane Jackson, in his maintenance of the route, he's got to leverage it a certain way based on the defense and the coverage called. He wants to widen him to the boundary a little bit and then snap that route off right here, right to the middle of the field. And, with everyone in man coverage, there's a nice little soft spot right here. Well, Dane does a good job of breaking on it. And it's because his eyes are on his target, obviously, but also, they're on Tom Brady. He plants as soon as that tight end plants. I mean, it's really 1-for-1. Right foot by the tight end, left foot by Dane, breaks on it, gets into the inside hip, and he's just got to pull that in, man. That would have been a big play. And you can tell Brady, this is what he was expecting, and he saw it come so quickly. It was not really good footwork or good technique from Brady. He kind of jump passes that, and that's not typically what Brady does. Almost got a little antsy there, Brady did, and you just wish that Dane could have brought that in. So I'll try to take a look at it from the end zone angle. Yeah, you can see man coverage. Right here is man-to-man. Get a peel or dog technique from Jerry Hughes on Fournette. You get the leverage in the route by Cameron Brate. But Dane's right there to make a play on the ball. And I mean, if Dane isn't there, if the ball's thrown a little more accurately out in front, Brace maybe catches it and gets into the end zone, maybe takes a big hit from Hyde, but that's just one of those opportunities that you'd like to see that player reel that in. All right, a couple more plays from this game. Again, doesn't back down. Bottom of the screen, one-on-one with Gronk again. And, this is what the Bills like to see. They rotate to a single high look. Poyer hits the post, and you're just seeing Very good technique from Dane Jackson. Patient at the line of scrimmage. Okay, he releases outside. Looks like he's going to be running a go route. Get chest to chest. Boom. Gronk's head snaps back. You see his helmet snap back. So what does Dane Jackson do? Chest to chest, eyes up. And you see Gronk does a good job of, again, using that physicality. And he's overpowering him as the ball is floating in. He's almost knocking Jackson over, but Jackson stays in the fight. And as Gronk is bringing it in, you see Dane Jackson get his hand up into the pocket and rake it out with the backside of his hand. I mean, that's just fantastic coverage on a go ball. I mean, this is textbook go route defense here by Dane Jackson. Awesome stuff. He's got that competitive spirit. There's no doubt about it. Let's see if we can get a good look at it from the end zone angle. See right there, you see Gronk pushing off, creating that separation. And at this point, now Dane Jackson's not even playing the ball anymore. His eyes aren't up because he's getting outmatched. Now he's just playing the guy. You know, he's going up with both hands to go catch it, and just Dane stays in there and rakes it out. You see him rake it out right there. That's awesome. Awesome technique by Dane. So bottom of the screen, this is where you're going to see him struggle over the next few games. So I know he's going against Mike Evans right here. And I know it's man-to-man coverage. And, I mean, he's one of the best wide receivers in the game. But you see him try to motor out and then throw his inside hand to punch Mike Evans. And Evans just blows by him. And you can't recover from that. You see him have to spin this way over the middle, and that just takes too much time. And if this is a better throw from Tom Brady and not low, I mean, Evans is probably off to the races. I mean, if he's going full speed and that's properly placed, Bill's safety is not going to make a play on this. But Dane Jackson, again, kind of gets lucky here. You don't want to see that type of soft aggressiveness. You know, if one way to describe it, soft. You know, he's bailing right here. He's motoring out, keeping that cushion. But then as Evans breaks to the middle, he throws this punch for some reason. You don't want that. Like, if you're going to play off a little bit here, you know, you're pressing at the line and then you're motoring out, like, just use your feet. You don't want to, as soon as you throw, you're off balance, and that quick game's there. And again, if this is a better throw, this is 6 points, I think. Here's another one. The Bucs motion Godwin across the formation here, and you see Dane right here. He's following Godwin. And just watch him track in man coverage down the field here. Right there. That's all right. You're good. You're in good position. But you see, as soon as, and this is what happens with Dane when he gets into that trail technique, so he's in phase, and then what the Bills want him to do is just get on the backside of him and just trail him, or, you know, use that dog technique where whatever direction he goes, you're going to have Dane follow it left or right. That's all they want from him. He doesn't have to be this grabby. Just watch his hips and travel with him down the field. But you see he gets too grabby, and then, you know, guys are able to separate. This is another play, you know, just outside the reach of the receiver. But Jackson lost leverage and was out of phase on that play. This is still a tough throw just because of the position he's in. This is a really tough throw, especially as Brady's rolling to his right. But these are things that just keep popping up on film when the Bills do go to man coverage, where they probably want to have these issues if a Trey White was in there, or a guy that's better in man coverage, that has better feet. Just not really Dane Jackson's wheelhouse. All right, let's take a look at the next game. Panthers game here. All right. So here's another example of this. Very similar to the Mike Evans play, top of the screen. You're going to see wide receivers do this all year to him. Kind of slow release it, stab outside, and then just run a slant to the middle of the field. Again, the Bills are perfectly okay with completing these. But there were times where the Bills got lucky, where yeah, they're okay with letting other teams complete these short passes, rallying and tackling him. But if some of these passes were better, I think there'd be a lot more bigger plays against, Dane Jackson and the Bills defense. So you see the ball is really high here. So off the snap, you're going to see that wide receiver stab outside, run a little circle or diamond release. So he's just basically pressing outside leverage and circling back on the slant route to the middle of the field. Watch what Dane does. He opens those hips, and then he tries punching again with that inside hand. Really nice throw by the receiver. Watch the receiver's left hand, right on, basically on the back of his arm, of Dane Jackson's arm. Just pushes him by. Textbook. And you're going to have a baseball spin to get back in position on the ball, which he does a decent job of that, but that's just too much separation. And again, if this is completed right in this area right here, this guy's back, defensive player is back, is to that ball. I mean, there could be a big play waiting to happen here, but pass is high. Dane Jackson does a good job of closing the distance. And this was 2nd and long, so yes, the receiver caught it, but it still extends the drive. It still, leads to 3rd and short, 3rd and 5 or 6. And that was pretty much a no-name type wide receiver. So, again, those type of slants, they really give Dane Jackson trouble when he's in man coverage. Steven says, I'm rooting for Dane. He's not a bad player. I just need to see more. Yeah, I mean, I thought his play was just as good as the year before. In this next year, he's probably getting a shot to play some early season reps. Obviously Bean really likes him too, and the staff really likes him. He played in a similar scheme at Pitt. So he needs to show out. He needs to get some more plays on the ball and improve and take that next step. And in his 3rd year now, like, it's time. So here's a play, bottom of the screen, where he gets smoked. And you're going to see another bad throw kind of bail him out, underthrown. So what this receiver does is he gets into his blind spot. So this is more to the bottom of the screen. He gets into Dane. You see that press bail by Dane. So what this receiver does is he gets outside, and with his speed, he quickly gets into the blind spot of Dane Jackson. Right there. Like right now, you see Dane initially starting inside leverage here on the press bail, and then he kind of works outside here to maintain leverage. Again, keep the peripheral on the receiver, but eyes on the quarterback deep in his drop. But as soon as Dane tries squeezing this route vertically right there, that's when Moore says, you know what, best release. I'm going to get inside and get up the numbers, and this should be a touchdown. But it's a bad throw from Cam Newton. He's throwing off his back foot. He's got pressure in his face. I mean, this is a walk-in touchdown. But it's underthrown, and Dane is able to make a play on the ball. He has no help deep. See it from the end zone angle. Again, if this is a better throw, this is an easy touchdown. I'll give Dane credit. He got back into play. That's just a really good route. That's a savvy release from Moore on that play. One thing he does really well when he's in his zone, especially when the Bills play their blue coverage, which are like 2 high sets where cover 2, Tampa 2, and then trapping out of 2. Top of the screen, does a good job of trapping on this play and deterring this short route. So number 1 wide receiver in front of him, as he gets into a press bail, he's going to release vertically. So he's going to squeeze him, but his eyes, as you can see, his eyes are on number 2. Number 2 is running just a speed out right here. He has the ability, he has the leeway to trap. When 2 goes out, you see him trap. So he's going to drive on that. And then Poyer is going to replace over the top on number 1. And you can see Cam Newton, he's ready to deliver that pass to the number 2, but ends up pulling it back because he sees Dane trapping right there. So then he resets and tries delivering deep to the number 1 wide receiver, and it's just a bad throw. So this is good coverage. These are the type of plays that, teams like the Bills that play a lot of zone coverage, there's not a stat registered here for Dane Jackson, but zone coverage is all about taking away options for quarterbacks, taking away targets, and threats. And Dane Jackson helped take away the immediate threat right here. 2 going out, force quarterback to reload and go to his next option, which was the deeper route, and he's not able to execute that. So with let's see, this next play is another one of those plays that again is closing speed. This is why a lot of us want, a more athletic corner thrown into the mix. It just would add so many different things to the Bills' scheme here. So he is, let's see here, top of the screen, I believe. Again, quick pass, right? Underneath, short of the sticks here. But watch the feet at the top of the break by Dane Jackson. So right here, boom, he plants. But you'll see a couple like pitter patter. He doesn't have the springy feet that you want to see from a corner. You want to see a corner, boom, plant with that foot right here and then drive on the ball. Either way, he still gets in position on the wide receiver and closes that gap in the green. But you see the receiver is able to still get the first down. Again, if that corner, that little hesitation by Dane Jackson right there and his footwork, again, this is because of his athleticism or lack thereof in some regards. That's yardage right there. That inefficient footwork is yardage. And if they had a better corner there, he's going to plant on that foot. He's going to drive on that. And honestly, probably get there just as the ball is getting, to that 50-yard line or so. And then he's got him hemmed in a little more, whereas right here, he's kind of like a yard and a half away, which allows that corner to get back up inside to get the first down. So it's a critique right there. I know I'm getting into the weeds a little bit there, but that's yardage. That's time. And that time equals yardage, and those things add up over the course of a game. So top of the screen, good job here against Moore. He takes the fight to him at the line of scrimmage, press at the line of scrimmage, motors out with his feet, gets a little grabby right there, but look at him choke this route as Moore breaks to the middle of the field. But he suffocated Moore at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't allow him to get that inside leverage. And, his hands being on Moore also give his hips time to flip right there. So Cam Newton wants to get it to him, almost similar to that Cam Brate route. But because of the good coverage and disruption at the line of scrimmage, Cam Newton has to move on in his route and then go to the bottom of the screen. And I believe that play is ruled incomplete because the ball hits the ground here against Levi Wallace. So, again, takeaway options. So it's a good play here by Dane Jackson on second down. Press coverage versus Moore. I mean, you can't ask for a better rep from him. And here's another route where it kind of shows his lateral change of direction. You're going to see like a little pivot route right here, I believe, and he does a good job of shutting this down from off coverage. So you see the receiver stemming inside. So he starts a break on it, almost thinking like it's probably going to be a slant. Watch him close the distance. And then as soon as that wide receiver goes to run that return, he plants with that right foot to get back out here. Watch the footwork of Dane Jackson. He matches it almost step for step, but he doesn't just match it and then get out vertically so he doesn't get out leveraged out this way. He closes the distance between himself and the receiver, and it takes away the route completely. So you see him get to that right hip, boom, plants his feet, and then gets to the inside hip and in front of that receiver to take it away. And if this wasn't deflected by, I believe, Edmonds, this might have been an interception. Very good coverage here in the red zone. As I said, teams did try to test him on these routes in the red zone and try testing him, and he did a great job on this play. One of his better, defensive routes or plays here from last season. See if we can get a look at it from. So here we go. Yeah, and the receiver coming in right here. Look at him attack that inside hip. And then as he pivots right there with him. You look at his left hand, almost uses it to slingshot him back in front of the receiver. Man, if that's not deflected, that could be an interception. And I won't say a pick six, but he has a good chance of it, especially with more, behind him already one of the faster guys in the league. That's a fantastic play from Dane Jackson. All right, let's move on to the next game. Next game we're going to do is the Patriots game. This one he struggled a little bit in. And he struggled against N'Keal Harry, which is not a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing. Tim says, improved pass rush should help the DBs, but it seems like the slower Bills cornerbacks get exposed a bit with good quarterbacks and speedy receivers. Love to see them add some speedy DBs to help match up. I mean, that's a good point. I do think the pass rush will help the Bills secondary. And, but I think last year was a little different. I think last year it seemed like, and it's probably why Beane went and got Von Miller, the closer, because yes, it was the speedy receivers, but it was also the quarterback extending the play. We saw so many times last year where mobile quarterbacks were just getting outside of the structure of the play, and then those wide receivers with speed were separating. Those receivers, yes, the speed was an issue, but it seemed like it was late in the route, where the Bills took away the early stuff, and then asking cornerbacks like the Bills have to cover man for man or plaster down the field as a quarterback is escaping in the pocket. They did have trouble with that. So I do think, again, the Bills are hoping that the pass rush, whether the interior guys they sign or the guys on the edge and the guys that they bring in, will augment that and help them close out games and help them close out drives. But yes, you can't deny that having a cornerback with some speed and better feet, a guy that can match a player's speed for speed, step for step, and stay in their hip pocket and stay in phase more times than not. I can't disagree with that. I just think last year it had a lot to do with quarterbacks extending the play on top of that, which would take it to the next level, which led to some explosive plays, which, as I said, the Bills like to defend against. That's really their main philosophy, is like defending the deep passes. So this is one of those games where I thought Dane struggled a little bit. You're going to see him top of the screen versus N'Keal Harry. You see the Bills are playing man coverage, and they have two safeties deep. They rotate Poyer deep, so there's a two deep shell. Just watch how aggressive Dane is at the line of scrimmage with Harry, which, again, Harry is not a good wide receiver. You see him punch right there. He doesn't really land it. But by punching with that inside hand, his hips are now turned to the boundary, right? So Harry just takes an inside release. Now Dane does a good job getting his hand on Harry so that he can flip those hips. So boom, makes transition. But then watch the separation. You see Harry kind of get his stem back outside towards the numbers. Dane Jackson's trying to get in the trail technique right here to get, again, the backside of him, get on hip for hip. I mean, look at Levi Wallace's leverage. Look at Taryn Johnson's leverage. This is the type of trail technique that the Bills want. But Dane Jackson gets out of phase. He's not able to trail him, but he's got two really good safeties over the top of him to kind of cover for him. And again, this is not awful. That's really the point of trail technique. Like, stay on the backside of him, force that quarterback to throw it up and over the top, wherever he wants to throw it to. So middle of the field, to the boundary, wherever. You got safety help over the top. You could be aggressive. So I understand his thought process at the line of scrimmage, but he has to do a better job of just getting in trail technique. I don't mind him being aggressive and throwing that punch, but once you transition, get in the trail technique. I mean, look at his teammates. Look at how they're playing their trail technique. Levi Wallace, he does it from depth here. Look at him get to that inside hip. And I don't want to bring it up, but I'm going to. This is the same coverage that the Bills played against Tyreek Hill on that touchdown in the divisional game. And unfortunately, Levi Wallace had really good trail technique, but the ball was perfectly placed. Something that, again, Dane Jackson really hadn't had a quarterback challenge him in that way. So just look at the trail technique between Taryn Johnson and Levi Wallace to the bottom, and then how Dane Jackson plays his trail technique. I mean, N'Keal Harry was pulling away from him. Look at it from the end zone angle. I think you'll get a good look, good sense of what happened here. So you see him on the left side here, right here, and what that aggressiveness does and how he's unable to stick with Dane Jackson. So hips are flipped. All right, let's get back inside. Good punch right there to the right shoulder of N'Keal Harry. Again, buys him time to flip those hips. Boom. Now he's in phase. But then you see him kind of get grabby here. Right there, he gets a little grabby. What you want to see him do is just get on this backside hip. Just get on the back hip right there. Like just get right down the midline. And now as N'Keal Harry kind of winds back out this way a little bit to get vertical, I mean, Dane Jackson's nowhere to be found. And again, he's defending inside here. Like that's the main thing is like defend against the inside throw. So again, it's not horrible, but you want to see him tighter against a guy like N'Keal Harry. He should be able to stay with him. He doesn't, but he's got Poyer over the top to help him. And of course, that pass rush, as we talked about a minute ago, gets home. Bills have their cub front. So they have an odd man front right here. You know, center's covered up. And then they send Edmonds as well. And Ed Oliver's the one that cleans up, I believe, on this play. Yep, cleans up. So it's almost like a little game here. Running backs coming to pick up Edmonds. And then you're going to see Oliver. Usually this is Matt Milano and Edmonds, Matt Milano and Ed Oliver. But this time it's Edmonds. Bills want Milano in man coverage on Hunter Henry. So they send Edmonds, and Oliver's the one that cleans up on this play. So again, this is where a play where the pass rush does help out the coverage. So here it is again, another rep here with man coverage. Top of the screen, I believe. No, Dane Jackson's to the bottom of the screen. All right, he's in the slot right here versus, I believe, N'Keal Harry again. On the snap, they switch. And you're going to see Dane Jackson get matched up with Jakobi Meyers. Again, trail technique is not good here. He gets grabby. You're going to see Meyers kind of work out here and then back out to the boundary, and you can see the separation that he creates. So he's selling that deep over, right? He's selling that deep over and then just pivoting back to the boundary, and look at the separation. Boom. I mean, this is wide open. Here comes a safety, but he's coming from depth now. Again, Dane Jackson doesn't get the ball thrown at his target. So once again, you know, this is one of those plays where there was separation, but the quarterback didn't find him when Dane Jackson was in man coverage against Jakobi Meyers. Here's another rough moment from him, bottom of the screen. You know, a little out and up, and then, you know, it's actually called a rat route. So this receiver is making it look like he's going to run a speed out, which is something the Bills defense gets attacked with a lot. Then he's going to run up, get vertically up the numbers, but then really just kind of come back on a stop or comeback route. And Dane Jackson, you know, he jumped the speed out. So now he's out of position. You see him kind of trip as he's transitioning, but he does get back in position because of that, just the route itself. But I mean, he could be that aggressive too. I will say that because he's got this safety deep, right? Yeah, this is, you know, it looks like quarters coverage versus a 2x2 set. But out of position, man. You want to see him be under control a little bit better on that play. So here, let me rewind it a little bit. So this is that trail technique I keep talking about. Something the Bills love, especially on third and longs. So watch a trail technique by Taryn Johnson and Levi Wallace, top of the screen. And look at that. Like, look at how he gets into that hip and then carry him. Look at how Levi Wallace gets into that inside hip. Taryn Johnson breaks the ball up here on a double in route here. And you see Dane Jackson, bottom of the screen, doing the same thing. This time a little bit better on N'Keal Harry, getting that trail technique. But you can see N'Keal Harry's pulling away from him. You know, he has help over the top in the post, so he's okay with funneling that guy to the post. But just speed-wise, you can see N'Keal Harry pulling away from Dane Jackson here. But top of the screen, again, that trail technique, that's textbook there. I'll show you from the end zone angle. Taryn Johnson, Levi Wallace did a great job of that when the Bills went to man coverage. You know, and it's one of those techniques that you ask guys that or teams that, you know, don't have guys that can play straight man for man and mirroring guys. Like, yeah, just like get on those hips, read those hips, and you see Meyers as he gets vertical here up the hashes. And when he breaks to inside, look at the footwork by Taryn Johnson. He just mirrors that footwork underneath him, and he's right there as the ball drops in. That's great trail technique, dog technique from Taryn Johnson. That's what it looks like. That's what, you know, textbook trail technique should look like. It's something the Bills did a lot in this game. 2-man with that trail technique. Now, this is a play where it's really Dane Jackson's wheelhouse. Bottom of the screen, he gets a crossing route from the wide receiver. So Poyer calls a slice. He's going to slice right here, and you're going to get a replace by Jackson over the top to help out the DBs to the top of the screen, who are, again, trail technique and man coverage. It's something the Bills did the second half of the season, primarily because they couldn't play their normal coverages. Is the passing strength, they would do is just man up these guys and still play their quarters coverage. And that's why to the bottom of the screen, you're going to see them play like a quarters like coverage. So normally if this was quarters, these guys are just going to stay deep and if he crosses over, they're going to let these underneath defenders kind of match up with the two eligibles right there. But what the Bills did was they manned up and said, okay, we're going to take these guys away up top, right? Man coverage, follow them. You'll have a safety over the top, and to the bottom, they'd run it more zone-like, more. Hey, if they're going to try to attack our leverage, we're gonna take that away. We're not gonna have Dane Jackson and man coverage chasing this crossing route across the field. No, we're gonna slice it with the safety, and we're gonna have Dane replace deep. Something they did from right around the Tampa Bay game for the rest of the year. You see Dane do a good job of helping over the top, because a lot of times what those routes up top will want to do is kind of out leverage, as that replacement comes down right here, have that would get leverage on this safety and then have all of the screen over here to throw to. So having a defensive back who can recognize to replace that safety and get back and essentially become that deep half safety now is an important play. Unfortunately, Mac Jones has his wheels on this play, and he's able to get to the first down marker. All right, another game on the docket. I think there was a couple plays from. Let me see here. Yeah, Falcons game. A few plays here, good and bad. All right, so top of the screen, man. Like Kyle Pitts is a freak. You saw Dane though. He's not gonna back down from these star players. You saw him make some plays on Gronk. Even last year against the Cardinals, like making plays on DeAndre Hopkins. Like he's gonna battle, and I love that about him. Top of the screen, another go route versus a guy who again is the superior athlete. But Dane Jackson stays neck and neck with him. Look at him again, get into the body, keep fighting with that bigger, faster player, and then as soon as that receiver looks up, that tight end looks up, go make a play on the ball at the catch point, up through the pocket again. Awesome coverage. Being able to defend the pass deep is the philosophy by the Bills, whether they're playing the quarters coverage or even in their cover 3 and man looks. Like you got to be able to eliminate those explosive plays, and Dane Jackson does a phenomenal job of doing that on this play. Look at him, look up, find the ball, keep his hand on the target there, and then just right at the catch point, swat it away. Almost intercepted too. Awesome play by Dane Jackson. Way to battle versus a star player. Here's another play. He's replacing, bottom of the screen. So there's that crosser, and there he is replacing deep. Again, that type of assignment and understanding is, what really makes the Bills defense tick. When they're in their zone coverages, and teams try to out leverage the coverage itself, the defender in that zone, you got to have options to attack that and counter it. And the Bills do. And one of those is by slicing. You see Micah Hyde slice 17 across the middle. Dane Jackson replaces deep and becomes one of the deep safeties. But on this play, it's 1st and 10. The Falcons identify man-to-man coverage with Pitts coming across the formation against Dane Jackson. And this is where the speed here is half a tick too slow. This is really good coverage. Single high look, deep crossing route from Pitts. Again, a freak. Like he should win this matchup, and he does. Deep over route, thrown behind him, he's able to scoop it up. You'll see it from the end zone angle. Scoop it off the back hip and then separate even more. But it's not horrible coverage from Dane, but you'll see where some of the limitations can show up. Again, football is a game of inches. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. Look at him get into the, try to get into that hip pocket. Now you want to see him get into this left hip, right? Here's the right hip. You want to see him get into that left hip. But because of the speed and separation from Pitts right here, Dane Jackson isn't able to. He doesn't have that speed to close right there. Because if he does, look where the ball's placed. It's kind of a lofty throw. It's not on a line like you'd see from Josh Allen. It kind of has a high release. But look at the back hip. Look at the throw. If Dane Jackson's in phase a little bit better here, because he's out of phase. He's not within arm length. If he's in phase here, he has a chance for an interception. Now, it's a fantastic catch from Pitts. Don't get me wrong. But inches, just inches away. And sometimes inches really decide games. I mean, we saw it in that game versus the Chiefs. And that's typically the case in those against those elite offenses, against those elite quarterbacks. Guys that can place it, perfectly. This wasn't perfectly placed. This should be a play in the Bills' favor, but they didn't have a guy that can make a play and stay in phase here. Levi Wallace's coverage versus Tyreek Hill on that in-breaking route was not bad coverage, but he was just half a click behind as far as being in that trail technique. You can't give in the inside route there, and the ball was perfectly placed to a guy with a lot faster speed and is a lot faster than obviously Levi Wallace. Dane Jackson, similar play here on an over route though. And then, Kyle Pitts makes the Bills play. So, like I said, game of inches. It's a cliche, but sorry guys, it's true, man. That really decides so many ball games. And yes, the Bills have some really disciplined schemes and coverages, but sometimes it's man versus man. And, you got to have guys that can step up in those moments with their athleticism, and the Bills don't quite have that all the time. I think I only have one play or two plays from this game. This is now the playoffs. I'm not going to show the Jets game. There's not much that happened in that game, and I mean, it was kind of a throwaway game. So first play of the game here versus the Patriots. Let's see. Poyer's football speed is different from his 40. Absolutely. Play speed, we talk about it every week. Play speed is different than, time speed, 40 speed. No doubt about it. Pitts is a freak, and 8 of the 10 cornerbacks lose that battle. Agreed. But, again, we're talking big games. When you get into the playoffs and you see I don't know if Kyle Pitts is going to be in the playoffs anytime soon, but when you see guys like Mecole Hardman, when you see guys like Tyreek Hill, when you see those guys on a weekly basis now in your own division, you got to have guys that can come up with those plays. And yes, I understand 8 out of 10 cornerbacks may lose that battle, but are those cornerbacks in position to make that a tougher throw? Or when there are opportunities like that, when the pass is off and not perfectly placed, can they make a play? Because again, those plays add up. Those inches add up to yards, and those yards add up to bigger plays. So I agree, Rich. I mean, that guy is a freak. He's really good. But in those big games, you're going to need those. In the most random games during the year, you're going to need that type of athleticism against, the teams that are in the Bills division and the teams that they're going to see in the AFC from here on out. I mean, you saw the arms race this offseason. It's been fun, but in a lot of ways, it may be forcing the Bills to kind of tweak their not just their scheme, but their personnel and the type of personnel, the archetypes that they've lived by since becoming, in charge at One Bills Drive. So Dane Jackson at depth against the Patriots in the playoffs now. This one's easy. He's failing versus the run. You see Jacoby Myers pushing down on Taryn Johnson. And so you're going to see a replacement here from Dane Jackson immediately. I mean, you can see all the signs that it's a run. All down blocks at the point of attack, and again, that push crack on Taryn Johnson. You see Dane come down and make the tackle at the line of scrimmage. That's his forte, right? That's his strength. You see him off the left side. He doesn't hesitate. That's what I love. He immediately sees those down blocks at the point of attack, and he's able to come downhill, contain the run, and then wrap him up for no gain. The only other play from this game I have is his zone coverage. So you see the tight end motion to a stack look, and just watch him, again, leverage both of those routes with his eyes on the quarterback. So he's got 3 eligibles to the top of the screen with the running back leaking out as well. Look at him push, push deep, and then right here he's at the sticks. It's 3rd down. This is the 1st down marker. And you see him kind of hold up, and he holds up just past the sticks because, he has this guy. And this is tough on him because he's looking at the quarterback. He sees that running back underneath, and here comes the high route and this little, almost like a smash where they're attacking him. So he's kind of caught. Like, do I keep bailing with the deep out route, the corner route, or do I hang low because he could just check it down to Stevenson, and that guy's probably going to get the 1st down? So he kind of hangs a little high here and really forces Jones to make a really good throw, and it is completed. And this is a tough throw, and the Bills were disguising. So you're seeing Taryn Johnson, become the deep half safety in this Tampa 2 look. This is Hyde becoming that deep hole defender. So Bills also got caught in a rotation with Taryn Johnson's hips to the field here. But not a horrible play from Dane Jackson. He challenged Mac Jones from the left hash there to make this throw, and Jones nailed it, to be honest. And Jackson's not able to get a hand on it as Jones kind of threw it up over that passing window, through that passing window for a big play to Bourne. Again, the Bills were trying to disguise this coverage. Did a good job of it. But there's not much more Dane Jackson could have done. Because, again, everyone else is getting depth, and Stevenson is really just sitting there. If he gets the ball, he's probably going to get it as well, get the 1st down as well. So he challenged him a little bit. Jackson challenged Jones a little bit, and Jones just nailed it. All right, let's see. Let's check out. Do I have any for the Chiefs game? I do. All right, so I got a few plays from the Chiefs game here. Let's see if I can bring them up. I thought I did. Okay. Let's see here. Richard says, I'm not a huge fan of trail technique anyways. I mean, the Bills don't use it all that often. It was really those 3rd and longs. And they've had a lot of success with it. And again, it's the lesser of evils, right? You don't want the Bills corners mirror and matching wide receivers, especially in some of these games where they have speed on the offensive side of the ball. Games against the Dolphins in the coming year. So you don't want your guys matching them. You want them like, hey, okay, we'll give them, they'll get vertically past us. Just get on their hip and follow them. And, if you're thinking about these guys that are pushing the ball down the field 15 to 20 yards, like, that's a tough throw. If you have a guy in trail on the backside covering up the back numbers of that receiver, and then you have a safety over the top, whatever direction he breaks, he's bracketed. And, that's a tough throw. And that throw's got to be up and over that first defender, which would be Levi, Taryn, or Dane Jackson. But then also they have to drop it in front of the safety. So, like, that's playing to the strengths of your players and really forcing a quarterback to make perfect throws. But again, in those big games, these elite quarterbacks can make those throws, and we saw that in this game we're going to take a look at. So I understand your hesitation with trail technique, but I actually like it, especially in 3rd and long. When you have 2 safeties back, when you have each guy accounted for, and then forcing a quarterback to play and throw up over the top of it, I think it's a great coverage given the Bills players and personnel. So first play we're looking at here from the divisional game, off-man coverage, top of the screen. Right here is Dane. So Chiefs throw a little eye candy, a little jet action. you're going to see Dane squeeze this route right here. And this guy's just running an out route. He does a good job of pivoting right there and colliding. We call that a collision point. As he flips his hips, it's right into, I think that's Byron Pringle. That's a nice collision point and taking speed off that route. Because if he doesn't do that, then Pringle's hitting that and he can get the full speed, get out to the boundary, and possibly be open on this 3-level passing concept. Unfortunately, as the Bills rotate into that single high, Tyreek Hill is running that crosser. And there's just no way that Levi is going to be able to stay in phase on that. That's just a lot to ask of him. Again, the athleticism, the speed or lack thereof. These deep crossing routes. The Bills are going to be seeing a lot more of this. I mean, look at the speed and separation from Hill. Just a lot to ask. And everyone else is covering down. So what you're going to see is they're in man coverage. And Taryn Johnson ends up switching with Tremaine Edmonds. So here's a running back. Taryn Johnson ends up taking him. And then as Kelsey slow plays this and releases, Tremaine Edmonds takes him. So good switch there between Johnson and Edmonds. Again, don't get out leveraged, right? You don't want to get out leveraged. And this play was ridiculous. I mean, you can't defend this any better from Gregory Rousseau and his wingspan, his length. Gets his hands up, but then you have Mahomes, dropping that delivery down. That's silly. That's just ridiculous. And kind of par for the course when he plays the Bills, right? All right, let's see the next play here. Next play is later in the game. Top of the screen, matched up with Kelsey. The 2x2 set or motion to it puts him in off coverage. And they're just going to swing it out to McKinnon here. And typically, he's good at this. Typically, you're going to see Dane Jackson, again, close that gap. And this is coming from depth. And this is another one of those plays. Like, I know when you're in zone coverage, you're playing off coverage, speed isn't necessarily a big thing. But if he recognizes this and he's able to fire his gun and has the speed to close that distance, he's going to probably get a little closer than where he does, like near the sticks. So he gets ran over by McKinnon, and McKinnon gets the first down. This shouldn't happen. You want to see him drive on the ball, take an angle where he's using the sideline as another defender, and bring McKinnon down. This is third down. Like, this is a big play. Like, typically Dane Jackson's making this play, but again, maybe a little more speed, a little more tenaciousness alone from Dane Jackson on this play. McKinnon's not going to be able to run him over here. You see him kind of let up. Like, attack the ball here and bring McKinnon down. Like, he's not a guy that's known for running people over, and you got housed. I mean, put right on your back. So I just like to see him attack the ball a little bit more on that play, which he typically does, but for some reason that one he was a little hesitant. All right, here's one that shows off his spacing and zone coverage again at all. So top of the screen. I like that. You see how he came down from off coverage, sees that, like that speed out. As I said, Bills are okay with giving up. Very aggressive, collides with that, takes some speed off of that, but look where his eyes are. Boom. Okay, so he gets his hands on Hill. He's running an out route. Now I'm going to get my eyes on the quarterback. What's the quarterback doing? I'm going to pivot and hinge back to take away Pringle, who's running the higher route of the two. So again, a little almost like a smash. So good job. Collision point on the quick game, pivot, hinge, eyes on the quarterback, eyes on Pringle, and then this is Patrick Mahomes kind of extending the play, and the ball goes incomplete. But I really liked his spacing on this play with the Chiefs, lining up in a trip set there, and they do a good job because you're going to see the trap technique from Taryn Johnson. So he gets his hands, both of them. You see Taryn Johnson and Dane Jackson get their hands on those receivers, but they almost pass them off, right? Because Taryn Johnson is trapping number 3. So Travis Kelce, as he runs this little out or stick route right here, Taryn Johnson squeezes it with Edmonds. So that's kind of taken away. And that's that Y stick, that Y option that Kelce likes to run. Jason Witten like to run, Gates, those guys. So that's taken away. So good spacing from Dane, because again, he's almost there's a 2-on-1 on him, and he's able to help take that away. And again, it's Mahomes extending the play, but it does ultimately go incomplete. I think I got a couple more in this game. Bottom of the screen, man-to-man coverage versus Kelce. I thought he did a decent job on this play, getting his hands on Kelce, and then again stand on that hip. There's a little separation at the top, but this is really nice. And he does have a little help with Milano kind of staying home with the running back coming all the way across the formation, and that's his man. So he's got a little help inside, but not bad trail technique from Dane on this play. But Mahomes is able to escape the pocket, which was often the case. So right here, again, in breaking route stem, see his hand on that hip. Nice nod right there from Kelce. He's a good route runner. Dane does a good job. As soon as Kelce's head snaps around, Dane's does too. So good coverage. Good coverage in that trail technique, that man-to-man coverage against Kelce. This might be the last one. And unfortunately, I'm going to end on another one of those low notes, and this is not a play that was even thrown, but you can see when the Bills wanted to go to man coverage, those quick routes, those slant routes were just unguardable at times from him. He just cannot match, and this is not one that receiver is really kind of running that circle release into the middle. It's actually just using his quickness and creating that separation. It's a really nice route, but Mahomes doesn't throw it. So there were opportunities versus Dane, but for whatever reasons, they weren't completed, and the ball went in other directions. So yes, it would be nice, guys. It would be nice to get some more athleticism, some more speed at the cornerback position. Dane Jackson played pretty well. He played with it himself, I'd say, overall last year. The Bills know his strengths and weaknesses, and I think that's one thing the Bills do really well, especially at the safety and cornerback positions. They understand the kind of guys that, being drafts into this scheme and what they can do and what they can't do. And so, when Trey went down, they asked Dane to do some things that made him uncomfortable at times. But for the most part, they played it safe. I mean, they had Poyer and Hyde on the back end, and they played a lot of those two shells. And when they did go to man coverage, they played those two shells, that trail technique. And there were just times that, yeah, Dane was beaten, but, those throws were deterred a lot of times because you had those all-pro safeties deep. So Mark says, Erik doesn't like to end on a sad note, so here's a song. Yeah, it's tough. You know me, I'm a pretty optimistic person, and I like highlighting what guys can do, not necessarily what they can't do, or plays that they didn't play all that well, didn't use good technique, and just you could see as you watch the film, you can see that what he did struggle with, what Dane Jackson struggled with. So with Trey's situation possibly missing the several months to start the season, do the Bills just go back into this type of coverages where they're playing a lot of two shells, and some of the teams that are going to be playing against, like, how are you going to play two shells when they can run the ball pretty well? So they're going to have to make some decisions schematically, or when it comes to the personnel, tweaking some things and getting some more athleticism in there. Richard asks, what do you think about Poyer's situation? It's hard, man. It's hard to read him in his camp and what they're doing right now, because he was probably the best player in defense last year. Let's be honest. He was probably the best player, and he's one of the few players. I think him and Milano maybe kind of go back and forth when it comes to being that emotional spark plug, right? When Poyer makes a big play, when Milano makes a splash play, that defense just elevates themselves. And it's almost like, especially when they're at home, getting the crowd into it. Those two guys are their splash players. And like I said, I thought Jordan Poyer was their best player last season. And he made plays. He made splash plays. And he did so many things for this defense that maybe he doesn't get the recognition for from fans, but he obviously got the recognition from the league and people who cover the league. I think, I hope that he is able to eventually just, come in and start playing again. And that's all I can, really say about it. I would like to see him play, and I think he will in the end. He's not there. He wasn't there. Obviously, it's voluntary and all that. But I think when push comes to shove, he's a competitor. He understands, what's in front of him, especially from a personal standpoint, but also from a team standpoint, and how, how this team operates and how they have a chance to really make a run this year. So it's unfortunate, but that is the business. And I'll rarely side with a team when it comes to extending players and players wanting to get their money, because, the market dictates what these players get paid. And I think Hyde and Poyer are underpaid. I mean, it's pretty easy to look at some of the stats across the league and say, hey, Poyer and Hyde are, some of the best in the league at the position, and they're not one of the top paid guys. They're both not in that position. I think they're in the middle level of the league for safeties, like maybe 12, 13 or 14, 15, something like that. So I do think they're underpaid, and I do believe Bean when he says he does want to pay guys like that. Richard adds, he was put in a tough situation, and for the most part, thought he did pretty well. I agree. My name is Jeff. Taryn and Trey are sneaky fast, which further highlights Dane's shortcomings. Yeah, cornerbacks, especially in this scheme, and especially when Trey's in the lineup, cornerbacks are going to get beaten. Like, it's almost like how we talk about run fits. If a team is running it 40 times a game, you're not going to fit up the run perfectly every single rep. You're going to have 5, 6, 7 reps where you're going to blow a run fit. So when teams want to pass the ball against the Bills and they're passing it 40 times or 35 times, as a corner, like, you're going to get beaten sometimes. It just happens, right? It's the NFL. Let's see. Mark says, think they might play cornerback like they played tight end when they waited for a run on the position and then moved up to get knocks. Yeah. It'll be interesting because I think we're all starting to see the opposite side of the ball, the wide receiver contracts, the wide receivers being drafted. I mean, how many in the first round? Typically, 6, 7, 8, some ridiculous number. Like, wide receivers are getting paid the premium. They're getting all the love. They're getting all the numbers. It's a passing league. So a lot of those guys, from a standpoint of not just quality but quantity, a lot of them go early. A lot of them are getting paid. You're gonna start to see defenses, I think, start to commit to paying the guys that have to cover them. I'm not saying the Bills are one of those teams, though, because aside from Trey White, we've seen what they've done at that position, and really committing money more to the safeties and Trey White, not necessarily cornerback too, like a lot of people have been talking about in the chat. So yeah, I do think that, just because 3 or 4 corners go in that first round, I would be surprised if the Bills settle for the 5th best corner at 25 or 4th best corner at 25. I think, yes, it's a need. There's no doubt it's a need, but I still think only certain guys fit what they want to do. And, obviously, a guy I really like, Andrew Booth, if he's even there, there's a possibility that he could go before the Bills pick. So I think there's a few guys that they really have their eyes on value-wise in the first round when it comes to corner, but they aren't going to just take a guy just because it's a need. I think that's pretty plain and simple because, again, they've gotten away with not drafting corners high. So unless that guy, their guy, comes there and is available at 25, I don't expect them to draft one. Would I like them to? Absolutely. I would like them to get a guy like Andrew Booth. Excuse me. But they've shown us time and time again that they can coach up that position, that they can coach up the coverages and scheme up the coverages to hide the weaknesses of corners that they take in the mid rounds or as an undrafted free agent. Just looking back at Bean when he was with the Panthers, the season that the Panthers needed corners badly after Josh Norman left. They needed corners just as bad as the Bills do right now. Pretty much the same situation, honestly. What did they do in the first round? They went and got Vernon Butler, and then they got James Bradbury in the second round, and then they got Zach Sanchez in the fifth round. So when it comes to corners, and I know, Gettleman was in charge, but if anything's been proven of Gettleman's time in New York, is that Bean was influential on his drafting, on his personnel moves when he was in Carolina. I think that's plain and simple. I don't think you can disagree with that because you saw what Gettleman did without him and what Bean has done without Gettleman. So Gettleman leaned on Bean, just like Bean leaned on Joe Schoen, and that's what's going to be interesting here. Let's talk about that real quick. Talk about how important Joe Schoen or Schoen, however you want to call it and pronounce his name, how important he was for Brandon Bean. Because if you look at all those videos from Embedded, anytime a trade was made, anytime the value of the trade or value of the picks or guys that may or should fall or could fall, those conversations were happening between Bean and Shine. So I think that's going to be interesting to watch. And they didn't really replace the position. They're just kind of cobbling guys at other positions or other titles to kind of, make up for the loss of their assistant GM. I mean, how much did Bean lean on him? Just like Gettleman leaned in on Bean. So that'll be interesting to watch unfold in the draft and especially in the Embedded series when they do get to that. So with that said, appreciate you guys joining me in the film room. A little freestyle film room session on Dane Jackson. We got a lot of content, obviously, coming every day, every week. Your regular shows are going to be on this week, early this week especially. And the draft, obviously, is Thursday night. Greg, Aaron, and myself will be on hand in Vegas trying to do as much live content and analysis as we can. We got credentials, so we'll be in and around all the hoopla at the draft. It should be a fun trip. I'm excited to, cover that for the first time. So we'll definitely have a ton of content, and then we're going to have live coverage of the draft as it's going on. We're going to have every night, you're going to have several hosts and panelists from the Cover One Network breaking down the picks and have that live for you. So if you don't want to watch the draft on ESPN or NFL Network or any of that, we'll have you covered at the Cover One YouTube channel. My name is Jeff. We'll finish with this one. Drafting the best available is the only way to stay competitive year after year. We need players that'll make the team. Cheap rookie contracts. Absolutely. Totally agree with that. It's now more important than ever, right? Because the Bills are up against a cap, and they're going to have to make some tough decisions on guys like Dawson Knox, Ed Oliver, Tremaine Edmonds. So, the money's tight. They're foundational and core players that they invested in early in their careers through the draft are now coming to a point where they're due new contracts, and they're going to have to make some tough decisions because they can't sign everyone. So, yes, the draft now became that much more valuable. This is phase 2 is what I called it. This is phase 2. Josh Allen, he got his extension. You got him developed, and you developed him into one of the best players in the NFL. But now that you have to pay him, and now that you have a lot of your core players on, their second contracts, Tre'Davious White, Deion Dawkins, Milano, those type of guys on their Taryn Johnson on their next contracts, like now the cap is tight. You made a swing for Von Miller. The draft becomes that much more important. Bills Mafia, STF says, thanks. This was great as always. Yeah, I'm glad you guys joined us. If you joined us late, you'll have the replay on YouTube. We're on Twitch now, so if you guys are on Twitch, which we're new to, but all of our shows will be on there for a couple weeks, so you can always check us out on Twitch as well, on YouTube, on Twitter, on all social media platforms. This has been a freestyle film session on Dane Jackson. I'm your host, Erik Turner of the Film Room. Be on the lookout for the normal film room on Tuesday, one that I may not be able to attend depending on work, but of course, Kendall and Anthony will hold it down if I'm not able to attend. But as I said, this was the Film Room. Appreciate you guys joining me on this Sunday afternoon, and we'll see you on Tuesday.